Okay, so before I actually get into my presentation, I'm going to state my goals. So my goals are talking about my process as to how I got to my project because it was pretty crazy, my project itself, and then the positive impact that it's going to have because I believe that it'll have a pretty big one. Oh God.
Press the down button.
So before I get into my actual presentation, I want to talk about my process a little bit. So the reason I chose sleep is because I need a lot more sleep than the average person to function normally. And I always wondered if there was some sort of genetic reason to that. So when I first started this course, I started looking into genetics in sleep, but I found an overabundance of data and just too many things in your brain influence sleep, and there's not really one concrete thing that shows you that this is the reason that you sleep this much or sleep too little. And then also the genes that I wanted to use in my experiment, I couldn't because they weren't available in the country. So that kind of sucked. And then accidentally, I found this topic of energy drinks while I was researching genetics. So the reason I kind of stuck with energy drinks is being a student athlete and being a teenager in high school that doesn't get a lot of sleep. Sometimes there are things that you need to do to give yourself a burst of energy or to keep yourself awake. And I know a lot of kids don't drink coffee because they don't like the taste. So a lot of people rely on like Kickstarts or Red Bull or something like that to give them energy. But what they don't realize is that they not only have a lot of sugar, but they have a lot of chemicals in your body that can mess things up for you and that can eventually end up hurting you. So also I'm testing with fruit flies, and I just wanted to say that they're a very good model organism when it comes to tracking sleep, when it comes to tracking anything, because they're very easy to reproduce, and they're also very easy to track their sleep because it's literally only tracked by 5 or more minutes of uninterrupted like stillness. So that's how you can tell if they're sleeping, so it'll really help me when I'm collecting my data. And so the project is, I'm testing the effects on basically 2 things. So the first thing is taurine. Taurine is an amino acid which kind of builds the important proteins in your body. They're mainly found in the brain, but they can also be found in the heart and the retinas in your eyes. And they're also a key ingredient in most energy drinks that keep you awake. It's really the thing that keeps you awake due to this thing called EAT2, or me and Ms. Positive like to call it that. And EAT2 is basically a gene that regulates the flow of taurine into your brain, and it kind of signals your brain to keep you awake. So my experiment is basically blocking the function of that by reproducing 2 different types of flies that will completely silence out that function. And so I'm testing the extreme of what if your body can't regulate taurine and what will happen to the fly's sleep schedule. So basically, my graphic shows that I'm gonna make the flies to silence that receptor and then give them different doses of taurine, and I'll have a control group that'll get no treatment, and I'll just track on average what their sleep is for a week. But then I'll also have my experimental group that I'll be tracking the sleep of. And then I'll compare the results of the control, and I'll also compare it to a previous study that was done at FAU to kind of see how it relates to what they did, because that was really the first study that got me into this. And then if there is a really big difference between with the receptor and without the receptor, then you can really relate it to kind of what happens if you ingest too much taurine, or what happens if your body can't regulate it, which goes into my positive impact. So a lot of people relying on energy drinks for treating no sleep or sleep deprivation isn't really a permanent fix for it. And I think that if this thing is addressed and it shows that there's actually a negative impact that the chemicals in energy drinks can have on your body, the issue of sleep and the issue of sleep deprivation needs to be handled more from the root, instead of by giving people a quick fix with coffee or with energy drinks. And it specifically targets teenagers because a lot of teenagers don't drink coffee just because they don't like the bitter taste of it. So they really rely on these like sweet, sugary energy drinks. But what they don't understand is that they really can have effects that can hurt you. So my positive impact is really talking about how the lack of sleep can really hurt you, and it needs to be handled from the root, not just by fixing it, or like me getting 4 hours of sleep today and drinking a coffee hoping that it'll help something, because eventually you'll crash and eventually your body won't be able to handle anymore. and I'll be testing exactly what happens with your body. And that's it. Who's next?
Moise.
Here's who's starting.